Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Roma Press live stream. I'm your host for today, Andy from RomaPress.net and the Roma Press podcast. Obviously, we gather here for the first live stream of 2024. So, Happy New Year, guys! Hopefully, we can get off to a good start in this new calendar year as Roma face Cremonese tomorrow in the Coppa Italia round of 16. We are looking for a historic rematch against Cremonese, who beat us last year, obviously 2-1. Remember, it should have been a smooth cakewalk to the semifinal, and unfortunately, Roma went full on Roma and dropped out of Coppa Italia altogether. So welcome to all our friends and patrons. We got Peter. Happy New Year, guys! And I want to personally, and also in John's name, obviously, thank you all for your support. This past year was very important for Roma Press because we've managed to grow as the website. We've managed to grow as the podcast. We've launched this YouTube channel in late August, and here we are. It's January, and we are at over 1,000 subscribers, 1,200, I believe. So thank you so much, guys. That really means a lot. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so. You can also click on the notification button, the little bell, and you will get notified whenever we do these live streams. I try to schedule them in advance. We can get together here. Whole point today is to not talk about Juventus. We already talked about it in the podcast. We are going to get together here. We can talk about Cremonese. So I think we will get this preview out of the way. Once we're done with Cremonese, we can talk about transfers. We can talk about anything you want with regards to what Roma could do in order to get better as a football team in January. And we can discuss the situations with regards to financial fair play and all that baloney that we've been hearing lately. So Happy New Year. Thank you, Carlos, for your support. Really means a lot. Um, so what is new? Well, we obviously are coming off a loss against Juventus, and we're looking to play Cremonese in this midweek fixture. Obviously, no Evan Ndika, so we will be playing with a three-man defense that is rumored to be Zeki Salik, Diego Llorente, and Brian Cristante. Gianluca Mancini is supposed to be rested because he's still dealing with this chronic groin injury. He's had to play through it. He was there against Juventus, but Mourinho, even in his post-match comments, said Mancini was barely hanging on there in the 50th minute. So Mancini, hopefully he can get some rest. Hopefully he can fully recover, because the last thing we need is for Gianluca Mancini, our vice captain, to also go down, in addition to Chris Smalling being out, Evan Dika having gone to AF Con, and Kumbulla, who's supposed to be back somewhere around the Atalanta match next Sunday. So hello from New Jersey. Thank you so much for following us. I've never been to New Jersey. I've been to Newark, but I love Bruce Springsteen, so I guess that makes me an honorary citizen. Guys, if you haven't clicked on the like button, please do so that more people can join as we continue this live stream. uh odds that odds Mourinho forgets how many subs we have, Giovanni asks, obviously making that great reference to the unforgettable match that Roma played against Spezia with Paulo Fonseca on the sideline, and Roma making that extra substitution that then ended up costing us with a forfeit. Well, obviously, Roma, as always, they forgot to show up. And that's been a running theme in this Coppa Italia competition, which we failed to take seriously for for a decade, guys. I today it was very interesting. It's up on the website. So as we go along in this live stream, I'll try to reference some of the articles that have shown up today on the website, and one in particular was based on something that Corriere della Sera mentioned, and I hadn't thought of it, but Roma are the only top club, and by top club we also mean Atalanta, we mean Fiorentina. So that range of clubs, including Lazio, the only top club in Serie A not to feature in the Coppa Italia final since 2013. So it's been a decade. It's going on for a year, 11 years now. Roma have been eliminated regularly in the Coppa Italia, and very often it's been an underwhelming display. Very often it's been Roma dropping out for no reason at all. Remember when we dropped out against Torino, when we dropped out obviously against Fiorentina, the nasty 7-1 beating, and then obviously two occasions we faced Spezia. So Roma suffered 3 eliminations in the round of 16, 5 eliminations in the quarterfinals, and only 2 eliminations in the semifinals. I think that paints a very vivid image of how seriously Roma have taken this competition, how they failed to really meet the expectations, given also expectations for a Scudetto that were unrealistic at some point. Coppa Italia has always been, right, that competition that fans and players have always pointed to sort of half-heartedly, because at the end of the day, it's a domestic cup. Lazio have won it, Inter have won it. How special can it be? And yet, over the years, we've developed a great hunger for that cup because of how seemingly simple it is to reach the final, right? Last year, you win against Cremonese, you're automatically in the semifinal playing against Fiorentina, and a very beatable opponent, and off you go to the final. Instead, Roma, as always, chose the hard way. Happy New Year to you all. Thank you so much, Logan. Hoping that we can get through this with a decision mercato with some much needed reinforcements for the squad. We'll get to that later, Logan. I think we all want to talk about the transfers. Mark, who are we most likely to sign for center back position in this January window? I think that's a great question. I mean, that's the main question that we'll probably address tonight. So yes, give the live stream a like, please. There's 19 of us. We're only at 8 likes, so give us a like, and let's get this live stream rolling so more people can join us. With where we are in the table, unless we win Europa League, can't imagine Jose Mourinho would get a vote of confidence for a renewal from the Friedkins, says Giovanni. If we waited this long to evaluate options, probably means he's out. But if we win Coppa Italia, do you think that would change? And I think that's a great point, Giovanni, because here we are on the eve of this game that should be no issue, right? I think we can all agree that for a Cremonese side that is struggling in Serie B, as always, Roma go into this fixture, round of 16, as the clear favorites. No excuses, right? With the possibility of facing Lazio in the quarterfinals. So another derby. Roma famously known, or rather infamously known, for their derbies in the Coppa Italia, which have most often resulted in a defeat. So that's not looking good. But yes, I mean, with the Coppa Italia, right, seemingly being this very feasible trophy to achieve, one could potentially argue that that's your trophy, right? That is your objective for the season. And if you manage to get to the final, if you manage to win that trophy, that's a vote of confidence, not only for Mourinho, but for the team as well. And yet, I think that today, a lot of reports were saying that Roma president Dan Friedkin is supposed to be back in town. And this time he's supposed to be back for good, meaning He's going to be here for a while, and he's going to be personally involved in a lot of discussions that are going on behind the scenes with not only with regards to Mourinho's contract renewal, but also Thiago Pinto's future. The future of our CEO Lina Suluku, who just arrived at the club, and yet she's already being linked with Saudi, with the Premier League, with whatever. And so there is a lot of questions for top management, for the team, right? For the personnel, who goes, who stays. These are all questions that have to be addressed within. We've seen reports in the past that claimed the deadline for any decision, for example, regarding Mourinho, would be January, February, right? Well, I think it's pretty safe to assume that even when we look at the games that Roma are supposed to be playing in this stretch, in these next few weeks, that's the season right there. We've said it with John on the podcast numerous times. This December run going into 2024 was always going to determine your position in the table, and that's it is true. It is true because we saw the reaction of the team once they won against Napoli, but we also saw the reaction of the team and the positioning of the team in the table once they lost to Juve. Obviously, nothing is lost so far, right? We can all agree that the table is pretty tight. The teams are sitting one on top of the other. Bologna lost, a team that beat Roma, beat Atalanta, beat Inter in the Coppa Italia. They lost against Udinese 3-0. So that shows you that Serie A is as unpredictable as ever. But that doesn't excuse Roma from taking tomorrow lightly. Tomorrow, regardless of who plays, the expected result should be a win, right? So tomorrow we're looking to play with Miles VR in goal. We're looking to play with Brian Cristante at the center of the defense, with Diego Llorente and Zeki Salik on either side. We're looking to play with Bove, Pellegrini, and Paredes. Potentially, Belotti could start along with Romelu Lukaku, but that's the players to be rested are likely to be Paolo Dybala and and Gianluca Mancini, who is dealing with an injury, as we've said before. So again, this is a no-brainer, guys. I think for far too long, again, going back to that 2013 final, the Coppa Italia has always been this sort of, you know, children's cup, right? Not comparable, not anywhere near any European competition, and yet it's made a difference with regards to how other teams have been perceived by it, by the act of winning Coppa Italia. That's not been the case for Roma. Roma have failed to show up most of the time, even by fielding their strongest starting 11. It was just a matter of attitude, right? And I think tomorrow as well comes down to attitude. We got Eddie with a comment. For the first time, you guys did not criticize the team after a loss last weekend. You and John would bad talk a late win, a draw, and a loss altogether. The best channel, though. Eddie, I don't think if that's the impression that you're getting, I think we're doing a poor job of it then, because we've said it time and time again. Even if you give us a win at the 95th minute against Sassuolo or Monza, or Lecce, sorry, like we did in the past, we were ecstatic with those results. We'll take anything at this point, really. It really comes down to that. Even with Napoli, we praised the team because Roma showed up strong, and showed not only being the defeated party time and time again, usually 1-0. I listed on the episode the times that we lost 1-0. I mean, it dates back to the past 8 years, really. So, not very encouraging, but Roma still tried. There was effort. The team played, the team tried to bring the game to Juve. And until Juve's goal, the match was right there, and it could have ended 0-0. So it's not like Roma are heading into this game with Cremonese with their shoulders slumped, head hanging low, low on confidence. No, that's not the case. I think, if anything, the team should be motivated for tomorrow, because then they play against Atalanta and Milan in Serie A. And if you win tomorrow, you go through and you play Lazio. So we're talking about a stretch of games that are extremely. I mean, they're the reason you walk onto the pitch and you sign up for this, right? So Roma, uh, I think we can all assume that the expectation is very simple: show up, win, and go home. Now, so with Cremonese out of the way, because I want to say that this is a straightforward, we can get the good stuff. So please, anybody that has any questions with regards to transfers, financial fair play, anything you want me to address, drop a comment and I'll make sure to get back to you. So I'll try and go back to the initial comments. For example, uh, do you think Keramitsis has a chance on the first team tomorrow? I don't, but I do believe that in the long run we will start seeing more younger players tomorrow. I may expect Mourinho to give a chance to the youngsters, but I don't think tomorrow is one of those games that Mourinho will take lightly. So um, I'm not sure still how, despite his vote of confidence for the youngsters in his post-match comments after the Bologna loss, where he said, "Oh, I'm willing to give younger players a chance. Maybe we should focus on that." I'm not sure that he's there yet with regards to tomorrow. Who are we most likely to sign for center back position in the January transfer window? Asked Mark. So that's a good question. We can start discussing. We saw a number of names, guys. We saw a number of names. That it's been. I mean, I've been writing these articles based on what Italian media uh publish, but it's been rough, guys. There's been a lot of names, not only from Serie A, like Dragusin, who is now looking to move to Tottenham, which means he's gonna move for a big fee, something that Roma were never going to spend. um we were linked. Who else? Oh, with Pablo Mari from Monza. Again, not a player that you're gonna take away from Monza in the middle of the season. Too important for them. So then we started hearing these names from France. Arthur Thiet from the Belgian defender for Rennes. I think that was a name because of how the Matic deal worked in favor of the two teams. Potentially, the two teams being in good relations. Although I doubt that. We obviously heard the name of Trevoh Chalobah from Chelsea, right? A player that has missed 150 days because of injury, so he's hasn't played a single minute this season. He's been the highly linked name. This was a player that was being linked with Inter and Bayern Munich prior to his injury. So there you go. Now he's looking to move on loan because of this injury. So he's not looking to move permanently elsewhere, and Roma can only sign players on loan in January. So we've heard a bunch of names. Eric Dyer, obviously, this is a name that once again has come up because of Dragusin's potential move to Spurs. Spurs could free up Dia. I really those are names that still, despite even those circumstances, right? Solé from Salzburg, again, another player who's been repeatedly injured. Guys, bear with me. Today, an article by Corriere dello Sport mentioned more realistic names that I think, unfortunately, as unappealing as they may be, there may be some truth to that. So today's Corriere dello Sport mentioned the names of Everton defender Ben Godfrey and Crystal Palace's Rob Holding. Obviously, Rob Holding, the famous Arsenal defender, he completed a move to Crystal Palace in the summer. He's played, I think, one game for Crystal Palace all season long. Godfrey for Everton, 2 appearances all season long. Now, this is the kind of profile that I would recommend most fans sort of set their expectations for. Okay, I'm just pointing my finger at Diego Llorente last season, right? A backup defender for the worst defensive team in the Premier League, comes on loan, on a dry loan to Roma, ends up impressing both the club and Mourinho, so he ends up staying. But that's, I think, there's a truth right there, because we saw today a report again by Corriere dello Sport, which said the following, and this is all on the website. You can go to romapress.net and you can follow along these news with me. So today's big news from Corriere dello Sport was UEFA imposed strict transfer budget limit on Roma in January. And the article by Corriere dello Sport went on to specify that Roma have been notified by UEFA that they can only operate within the settlement agreement that the club signed, with a limited budget of 1.5 million euros in January. So this is the budget that we have for everything in January. For the defender, if you want to have a fullback, that's your money right there. So we understand what Thiago Pinto is working with. I want to stress the fact that this does not mean that Roma willingly give Thiago Pinto, the general manager, 1.5 million. This is a fixed price, a fixed sum of money that UEFA agreed with Roma. Roma knew this, so I'm still skeptical about this report saying that Roma were notified lately. This is not. These are things that the club know fully well months in advance. And to anybody asking how long is this going to go for, these specific parameters that Roma are operating under, have been operating under for the past season and a half, will last until the end of this season. That Roma will still be under financial fair play for the next 3 years until 2027. But starting from the next summer window, so this summer, we will be operating under different parameters. So perhaps the transfer budget limit will be different. Perhaps Roma will have more leeway. That all really depends on how successful they are with sales and how successful they are with qualifying, for example, for the Champions League. That's a reality. So it would be amazing to see Bov and Pizzili start tomorrow. Odds are that this would not happen, though. I don't know. Pizzili, keep an eye on it. It would be. I mean, I don't know if that is too far gone of a scenario. It would be great to take Coppa competition seriously for a change. I'm not sure that this team can play in 3 competitions. Absolutely, Musab. That's a consideration to be made. But I think unfortunately the excuse does not apply to tomorrow, right? It's something that we can discuss once we get through this round, if we get through this round. So let's I'm just gonna okay, but let's see. Oh, okay. How did the financial fair play restrictions begin, and how long are they going to last? Well, this financial. So, again, a lot of people were surprised that we've been hit with these sanctions, and it's been going on for a while. When the Friedkins took over from Pallotta, the ownership change always gives you a bit of leeway in how you carry on your transfer business, and that's when the Friedkins walked in. Their first summer window was involved large sums of money. Tammy Abraham became a record signing for the club, right? In total, over 40 million euros. So that's how it went for Roma in the first summer window. We bought Shomurodov, obviously. These are all things that you can look back on. Matias Vigna. Anyway, the whole package, it was a successful summer. Unfortunately, basically everything from the previous ownership also stacks up. So once you got that summer out of the way, then UEFA caught up with you. Then UEFA met with Roma. They presented them with the situation. Roma agreed to respect certain conditions, They signed for a number of years until 2027, and that's been a reality ever since. Because it's not like whatever happened under Pallotta in the last years, especially when Ramon Monchi came in and had that disastrous first window where Roma spent a lot of money and then failed to generate enough in return. That unfortunately catches up to you. That ends up haunting you for many years. So Roma are still, carrying scars from those wars. I mean, Tiago Pinto had to deal with Javier Pastore's departure. Think about it. Javier Pastore is still on Roma's books. What was it, a year and a half ago? So Gonzalo Villar, you know, just a few months ago, Carles Perez a year ago. So these are all things that, they carry over, not necessarily from Monchi, also from Petracchi. We have that weird spell without even a sporting director. Roma have made a mess in those final years of the Pallotta ownership, and then that transition between Pallotta and Friedkin. Unfortunately, guys, it's not like these sanctions UEFA imposes them for fun. You may question why UEFA are more strict with Roma than they are with Barcelona or Manchester City, which is totally valid, and I absolutely agree with you. But it's not like you get sanctioned for nothing. Roma, the way they did their business, and also failed to achieve sporting objectives. So once they stopped qualifying for Champions League football, that was the end of it, right? They stopped being competitive, and that hurts you in the long run. And this is still the case. That's why every single summer, when we talk about the objectives for the season, the number one priority is to get back to Champions League football. It won't magically resolve all your problems, but it will get back some edge, some competitiveness. It will attract more sponsors. It will bring in more money. It's a whole different stage you're talking about. That all contributes to healthier balance sheets. That's what Roma are trying to work with. Um, do we really have 1.5 million for the transfer window? Asks Chris. Well, Chris, I don't necessarily know if it is exactly 1.5 million, but I'm fully aware of the fact that Roma will not be able to sign anybody on any loan with obligation. Forget an outright purchase. It's all going to be either loan with option, if anything, but more than likely it's going to be a dry loan, akin to what we did with Diego Llorente last season, where we sign him on a dry loan and then it works out for us and we negotiate a deal in the summer. But that's as far as Roma can go. Honestly, this is not. It's on the situation is very difficult. There's a lot of reports circling around, and when they circle around like that, I'm pretty sure it comes from one person. These reports saying that Tiago Pinto is tired, and I know a lot of people will be like laughing at the notion of Tiago Pinto being tired, but the reality of the situation is that at this moment in time, running Roma's transfer business is extremely difficult. Forget about the sales that Roma had to complete this past summer. Um, you're working with really a minimal budget. So this 1.5 million is a very realistic sum of money that Roma could have at their disposal. I would even venture as far as say there is zero money in terms of what you can spend, and that Roma will mostly focus on dry loans, if anything. That is why also it's so important to come together and pray and hope for Leonardo Spinazzola being sold for even a tiny sum of money to either Saudi Arabia. Gianluca Di Marzio of Sky Sport said also that Galatasaray are interested. And then we have Matias Vinha, who wants to go back to Brazil, wants to go back to play in South America. He's being linked with Flamengo. Well, Flamengo have only offered 5 million, and Roma are asking for 10 million. So, and Flamengo are not interested in spending 10 million on Matias Vinha, who's currently playing for Sassuolo, barely playing really. And so, but why are Roma asking for 10 million? Because they know that if they don't make money in January, there is nothing they can spend. That's how it works. It's the same old story, right, guys? You quid pro quo. You need something in exchange for something. You cannot spend without earning it first. Um, Eddie says Dyer from Tottenham would be a great deal, especially on short term basis. Chalobah would be injured for 80% of the games. Uh, Dyer is what can I tell you? Probably the earliest profile that we've been linked with because of his status as a free agent in the summer. Um, a player that Mourinho knows very well. He can play in the midfield. He can play in the defense. So a bit of a versatile player that I think was initially linked with us because of Matic going away and Roma not having that mediator between the defense and the midfield. Well, I don't know how realistic that is again because we have to remember, guys. Italian government have banned the growth decree in sports and in football, but in sports in general. So Roma will not be able to, and other teams will not be able to benefit from tax breaks for players coming in from abroad. So signings like the one with Lukaku, like Mourinho coming in, will be much more complicated because the club will have to pay them in full. Which, if you consider that Roma should be paying what Mourinho's, God, how much is he making? He's making what, 7 million, something like that. Well, that's not happening for Roma, and neither is it happening for Lukaku. So this is going to be a big problem, and I don't know if somebody like Eric Dyer would he be coming in and earning and willing to earn peanuts at Roma. That's the question. So this whole growth decree, I want to see what happens because honestly, if this thing goes through, if this thing is a reality that Serie A has to deal with, has to face, it's insane. It's insane, and a lot of clubs will suffer because of it. Think about Inter. Think about the kind of signings they made. Think about Milan. Think about Roma. These are things that will influence Serie A to an immense degree. So, guys, I'm thrilled to have 30 people watching, but I only see 11 likes. So, please, if you like what you're seeing, what you're hearing, give us a thumbs up, give us a like so that more people can join in. Um, for the center back, I would go to Kivior from Arsenal, so the Polish defender. If Zaleski is a starter now, they play together in national team. They work together really good there, so he would adapt quicker. But I don't know if Arteta would let him go. Well, the point also is Arsenal are not really looking to get rid of Kivior on loan. The only reports that I've seen, even remotely linking Kivior to Roma, are reports that say Arsenal are looking to earn 25 million, guys. So again, these are all fantasies. Unfortunately, Roma must, as fans, we like to live in a fantasy world, but the truth is that for Thiago Pinto, for example, it's a nightmare. This is not a fantasy world. For him, it's a nightmare. I know that a lot of people take issue with our scouting, with the recruitment, and that's fine. It's just there is a way of doing these things within these parameters that makes it impossible to even look at some like Napoli just spent 3 million to buy Mazzocchi. They bought Mazzocchi from Salernitana. Not a great deal, in my opinion. It's a long-term deal for a player that will mostly ride the bench for Napoli. Not a player that they needed badly at this moment. They needed an extra midfielder, in my opinion. Whatever. The point is, Napoli, who qualified for Champions League, won the Scudetto. So that's a different reality. They went out of their way. They spent 3 million. Well, Roma can't even do that. So if you were to tell Thiago Pinto, well, why didn't you get Mazzocchi? You'd be like, I can't spend 3 million because it's not there. They can't do it. They can't do it. It's not allowed. So like Milan getting Terracciano, like Atalanta getting here from Hellas Verona for what, 4 or 5 million. Again, things that Roma cannot do at this moment in time, and that's when those questions about UEFA being so strict with Roma are valid. But everything you do comes back to haunt you at some point in time. So even Kivior, guys, I'm afraid that a young defender like Kivior is out of Roma's reach at this moment in time. Not having a natural left wing back worries me, but it's kind of been like that for like 2 seasons now, so I kind of got used to it. Exactly. There are situations, guys, that we have to understand whether they're priorities or not. I think the priority right now is finding somebody that can inject some life into the defense, give Mancini a breather, allow Cristante to continue playing in the midfield, not having to rotate in the defense, because as much as we like Cristante for his versatility, he's not a defender. You cannot force somebody who's not a defender to be a defender, um, because it will eventually backfire on you. So obviously, we're dealing with Chris Smalling being out. There is just no report. There's nothing. Chris Smalling has gone AWOL. I really don't know what to make of that situation, because we are talking about arguably your best defender from last season who's missing. He's missing without a return date. We're talking about Mourinho mentioning in late November, saying, well, perhaps maybe he's going to be back in the new year. Still, no reports, no nothing, no talk of Smalling getting some surgery on this knee. There's no talk of him being back, even in the individual training. There's nothing. It's just him probably going to physiotherapy every day, and potentially looking to come back. I don't know, some point in February. So Roma have that. They have Evan Dika, who's now at the AFCON. Evan Dika, who I think we can all safely say he was the best player in the match against Napoli and in the match against Juventus. I think he was by far the best player against Juventus. It was remarkable. I really like what I was seeing, and that's why I'm also sorry that he's leaving at the best moment in time. The moment that Ivan Dika started to impose himself in Roma's defense, Roma lose him potentially for 6 weeks. Depending on how long the Ivory Coast stick around in AFCON. The point is, Roma are dealing with so many question marks right now. Sardar Azmoun leaving for the Asian Cup. Today, the latest report by Corriere dello Sport said that Roma have agreed to send Sardar Azmoun, so that one of their backup strikers, off with Iran to the Asian Cup after January 11th. So it's a mess. It's a mess, and then you add to that the fact that Roma have to work with a very very limited transfer budget, and there you go, a perfect Roma season at a point in time where Roma need all the guarantees, all the certainties, all the help they can get. What is? Oh, thank you. First of all, Vladimiro, thank you. Happy New Year to you. Thank you so much for joining us. I believe you're joining us from London. So happy New Year, my friend. Uh, Giovanni, what is your thought on what happened with management at the end of the season? Oh, what will happen? With what happens with the management at the end of the season? I think it's time to move on from Jose Mourinho. But do you want him to stay? And if not, do you have certain manager profiles that are like? Well, I think I will say this. I think with Mourinho, my opinion will fully depend on the results, really, because it's that easy. I think Mourinho is very popular among the players. There's not a single interview that comes out of a Roma player's mouth that doesn't praise Mourinho, but that only can. So that's great, because I don't think this team has been so united, so fully behind the manager in God knows how long. And that's been really our saving grace for the past 2 seasons. Whenever we needed to rally around, we rallied around Mourinho. Then that's been his biggest impact on the team, I think. But once the results are not coming in, and once you fail to reach the objectives, at some point you have to answer for it. And it's not only him, obviously. It's the whole idea behind the project that was started once you decided to bring Mourinho along. So my answer is, it really entirely depends on the results that Roma will achieve in the next few weeks, in the next few months. That's why on the podcast I said, Roma head into this new year without a clear idea of what the hell is going to happen in a few months. You really don't know, because, and that's why I think there is so much speculation around what the Roma president Dan Friedkin is going to do. There's articles that are asking the Friedkins to be vocal about whether they support Mourinho or not, whether they're going to stick around with Thiago Pinto. all these questions are not being answered. They're not being addressed right now because honestly, I think the stance of the club is very similar to mine, as in, let's see what the team does. It's and you can have a problem with this, obviously, because sort of nullifies any long-term planning. If you ask me what managers do I like, well, I think there has to be a future post Mourinho. So at some point, Roma also have to, just by themselves, have to think about in what direction the club would want to head in uh, after Mourinho is gone. And that's obviously that's something that you have to come up with some point. In my opinion, would be good to sort of go into, once Mourinho was such a breath of fresh air after those years of mediocrity, but also not even because I was, for example, one of the biggest supporters of Paulo Fonseca, but Mourinho brought a sense of stability that you needed very much. And I don't know if that sense of stability has overstayed its welcome, whether that is still something the club want at this moment in time. But I think once Mourinho is gone, you want to bring in somebody that brings something else. So you want to head into a different direction, whether that is Thiago Motta, whether that is, I don't know, Farioli, whether that is Palladino. These are names that are being linked with every single club in Italy. So don't mind me. These are not my personal favorites. These are only the names that are sort of being mentioned along the lines of clubs like Napoli, like Lazio, like Milan, like Roma, who have this looming question mark regarding their managerial vacancy. So, but honestly, I think the strategy, whatever thoughts are going into this, Roma, I think, are so tied up by this financial fair play situations that they cannot think about the future. Although they would want to, like Mourinho said, I would like the club to go into the direction of younger players. We are stuck with, bringing in these guys who either are on loan or they come in with very specific circumstances, such as a long history of injuries, Paulo Dybala and so on. Um, we got AP saying he brought seventh place stability. Well, AP, you know where I'm coming from. AP, one of our patrons who is a notorious Mourinho, I wouldn't say hater, basher, probably, but you know what I mean by that. In terms of, I meant by stability, I mean with Mourinho getting, first of all, getting the fan base behind, because after those turbulent years with the final days of Pallotta, and then a weird period of time during COVID where it was shaky, you didn't really have a reference point in the team. I think that's where Mourinho comes in. That's his importance to the club. But again, results wise, that's what matters to me, obviously. So I think going back to that point is, with the financial fair play, everything is so short term right now. Um, Roma can't even look past January. They can't. Roma, as much as they want to, they have to figure out this situation with a defender, with a short term replacement of Chris Smalling, with potentially a replacement for Leonardo Spinazzola, who might be on his way out. Who knows? His agent is supposed to meet with Roma in the next few weeks. So, because supposedly he's got so many offers on the table just a few months before a free agency. Honestly, I doubt it. But Roma have been living day to day for the past several months. So, again, the current financial fair play parameters will apply only to this window. Starting from the summer window, we will be facing new parameters, new conditions. So I don't know what that is. I don't know what budget constraints that entails, but Roma will be looking at a different reality. So hopefully it's going to be a better reality. Hopefully it's a reality that allows them to plan things for the future, because I think that's what we want right now, is to have an idea of what the future will look like, because right now we don't. Right now, everything depends on whether this team can stay competitive for the next few weeks, hopefully for the next few months. Hopefully they don't drop out of any competitions. Hopefully they can hold their ground in the Europa League, win against the Feyenoord, advance. Hopefully they can stand their ground in Coppa Italia and try and impress once in a while, right? So, but my concerns, I think, are the concerns of everybody on this chat, everybody in the stadium, and everybody working for Roma right now. The idea that you are being squished by these financial fair play limitations that then obviously influence the way you carry your transfer business. Transfer business directly influences what you see on the pitch, who you can rely on throughout the rest of the season. It's going to be hectic. There's going to be a lot of games stacking up. There's going to be injuries, obviously, along the way. It's inevitable. So, and you can't do anything because you, if you look at the calendar, the season is right there. We've said it time and time again. I know people are pointing also to this rough stretch of games that we have, I think, sometime in April. But the season, in order to get to April, you're supposed to get through December and January 1st. I think we can argue how successful Roma were in December. There has been a lot of good things that Roma showed, but there's also been a lot of shaky stuff going on behind the scenes. This whole Renato Sanchez situation, I don't know how helpful that can be. It's a lot of noise, a lot of molto rumore per nulla, unfortunately. Giovanni says, Mourinho is perfect for a 3-year stint to implement an attitude, but it's run out at this point, Andy. What would be considered bare minimum successful to consider extending Mourinho? Well, winning any kind of trophy. I think that's really the bare minimum that we could consider successful, or getting top four. And I think that's the consensus at Roma. It's top four. Why is everybody waiting to pull the trigger on Pinto, who, like him or not, from an administrative point of view, and that's where I think Roma like him. Pinto was always supposed to be more of an administrator, and Roma like him for that. And he's been approached by clubs in the Premier League, in Saudi, for that, for being an administrator, not a sporting director. All of these things, all of these discussions, these the future of a lot of members at Roma and players as well, entirely depends on results, on Champions League qualification. So, ha ha ha, Roma fans are talking about success. Well, I mean, I think it's not even about that. You can't talk about success if you're a club famously known for, say, dropping out of Coppa Italia. But definitely we can consider a success achieving top four, given how tight the table is. So I don't think the fact that we haven't won a lot in our history is a valid point to sort of not put us in the conversation for top four, because when you look at what is going on in Serie A, with the exception of Inter and Juve, everybody else is more or less running at the same pace, aiming for the same objectives, really. So that's what we expect. I think that's the general consensus also in this chat and among Roma's management. It's top four or bust, really. Like it or not, I think that says a lot about Roma's current situation. We're looking at a very uncertain future, guys. Doesn't mean that it's a negative future. Doesn't mean that there's a lot of stuff that hasn't been working for the club. I think again, I've been one of the few people probably here, along with John, steadily praising what Mourinho has brought to the club. Comes right then, don't bash Jose, bash your fed up board and fucked up board and bosses. Okay, well, I think we can have a split opinion on that, and I don't think that necessarily saying that there's been a lot of decision making gone wrong. I don't think that excludes that there is blame to be shared among players, among staff, among Mourinho, among the management. I think when a club fails to meet its objectives, everybody takes responsibility for it. But what are we talking about, guys? We're on the eve of playing against Cremonese in the Coppa Italia. This is a very attainable match, a very attainable result. It all really depends on, will Roma show up? That's been the historical question when it comes to Coppa Italia fixtures against opponents that you should be easily beating. Once you get past Cremonese, you will face Lazio in the Coppa Italia in another edition of the Derby della Capitale in the quarterfinals. So that will be a whole other discussion. For now, guys, I think we are going to end it here. If you haven't subscribed to this YouTube channel, please subscribe. This is where all the Roma Press podcast episodes drop in video format, so you can watch all the episodes here. You can also follow the live streams whenever I schedule them. I will try to be more consistent with these right now. The past few weeks have been pretty hectic, also health-wise, and just in terms of what's been going on behind the scenes. So please bear with me. But as always, thank you for your support. If you like what we do at Roma Press and you'd like to give us a late Christmas present, you can always go to patreon.com/Roma Press and support us there. It will really help us in this year that will be quite eventful for Roma Press as we try and continue to grow, and for Roma themselves as they try to compete on a number of fronts. So as always, guys, thank you so much for joining me. Once again, Happy New Year, and see you soon. Hopefully Roma get a win against Cremonese, and that will be it, and we will see each other probably before the match against Atalanta in Serie A. So until then, see you guys. Forza Roma as always.